The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Stage Door Show. Tonight, this is Dave Hondel. My guest tonight is a legend in country music. She has a new single, What Don't Kill Ya, out now on her upcoming album, For the Black Sheep, and it's actually soon to be coming for the Black Sheep, so look out for that. She also has another recent single that I absolutely love called Devil by a Different Name, which is off of her 4-song EP entitled Scarecrow. In 2017, she was inducted into the North American Country Music Association's International Hall of Fame. We couldn't be more honored to have her on the show tonight. So please welcome Lacy J. Dalton to the show. Thank you so much for being here, Lacy.
Hey, Dave, thank you so much. It's great to be with you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, absolutely. We are honored to have you with us. And, you know, besides all those honors, you know, something I wanted to bring up first here is another one that I know will speak to our independent artist listeners. But you were honored in the 2022 Lifetime Achievement Award for the Josie Award. So talk about that experience, because I know our listeners would love to hear about that.
Well, I have to tell you, Dave, it was a complete surprise. And what a wonderful surprise. This far down the road, things like this you really appreciate, because you don't know when you're independent if anybody's really hearing you or listening to you. And it just kind of came out of left field, and I was so humbled, and I was so thrilled and so honored that those folks felt that way, that they had actually seen the independent work that I've done, and they had heard it, and they recognized it. And, you know, when you don't think, I mean, I have no idea who hears what I do. And so I didn't know that they even knew about me. So it came out of left field, and it was just such an honor. I mean, I really was thrilled.
You know, I saw an interview with, well, it was actually, you were on the American Bandstand, and I know afterwards Dick Clark came up to you and asked you some questions. And, you know, a lot of our listeners are maybe too young to know who Dick Clark is. But, you know, I think when I grew up watching, you know, American Bandstand and Solid Gold and, you know, all the TV shows out there, because there were only a few networks when we were growing up. And, you know, to see that clip really brought me back to a time that, you know, I feel, you know, it's changed a little bit now, obviously a lot now, but, you know, back then when, you know, music, you listen to on vinyl records, we had a record player at home, and we listened to, you know, your music and, I mean, Johnny Cash and, you know, all the great, the Bee Gees and everybody back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, you know, so, you know, talk about that experience being on that show, because I know that really was a show that kind of helped people break out into the music business. And when you're on American Bandstand, I mean, it really meant something to be on that show. So how was that experience being on with Dick Clark?
The thing that I remember most was that Dick Clark was just the kindest, easiest person to be around. You know, as famous as he was, and as much as we all loved the show, and we all did, and everybody watched it, you would have expected that he might be a little bit busy or, you know, taken up with things. He was so personable and so kind and so respectful. It was really great to be with him. I always liked him. I just thought he was a really good human being. That matters to me more than anything. And I don't care how famous anybody is. I don't even care if it's someone who I am just knocked out by. If they're not a kind person and they are difficult and they won't let you talk to them, and they're just too aloof to even be, well, I just don't, at that point, that I become not interested. I'm really interested in people with people who are open, people who are willing to open themselves to you, no matter who it is.
Yeah. You know, that's I'm the same way. And I think, you know, when people have a good spirit and are, you know, open when talking to others, I think, you know, it really shows through and it comes across. And, you know, I think that's important. You know, I think for any celebrity or anybody that's in the business, and, you know, the fans, I think, you know, a lot of times are, you know, afraid, I guess, to go up and talk to their, you know, their heroes or idols. And, and they always say, be cautious or be careful when meeting your hero. You might be disappointed. And that's one thing that unfortunately is true in some cases. But, I've always thought that Dick Clark had a good spirit. And, there's a lot of people that I've had on the show that I've been fans of for years. And thank goodness that, out of 210 episodes, I haven't run into anybody that's been mean yet. Everybody's been very down to earth and very nice to me. And so that's been a great experience.
Okay, Dave, well, that ends here right now. That ends here right now.
I don't think so. I don't think you're capable. But no, it's been a pleasure to do this and talk to folks like you and people that have been in the business for so long. And speaking of that, sustaining your career for so long. And I know you've been an independent artist for many years, but that's for me, that's the most gratifying thing, to do things by yourself, because you're not having people to really answer to. And I know a lot of our listeners out there think the same thing, where, I know that it's a little more of a struggle to do things yourself, but at the same time, with streaming and all the available tools for independent artists, I mean, it's got to be, so much better than it was back in the day when you started, to be able to have those avenues to put your music out and to have that ability to say, hey, I'm not ready for this yet. Let's wait on this a little bit. And you don't have that pressure, I guess, of putting something out that you're not ready to put out.
Well, I have to laugh a little bit. You're talking to probably the world's greatest techno peasant. I really, my phone is a challenge to me. I don't know.
Me too.
I mean, I just didn't grow up with it. My kid is like on the cutting edge of the Google Glasses programming kind of technology.
Yeah.
And he did not get that gene from me. That was definitely from his father. Yes. And I do think that if you're an independent artist, if you are good with social media and you are good on the computer, it is just a world of help. And I have to say, I'm not particularly good at that. We have some help now. My manager's good at it, and Time Life, we decided to deal with Time Life for promotion and distribution, and they're really good at it. So thank God somebody is good at it. But you young artists out there, you people starting out with your independent career, I have what I tell them. I tell them, don't worry about a record company right away. You write your songs, you make your songs do as good a job recording them as you can, and you sell those CDs or whatever sort of way you have of getting music to people, or downloads, or whatever you do at your shows. And I will never forget, John Prine was a very wise man. When he was starting out, he did not have a record company. And John Prine, of course, was an amazing and wonderful artist and writer.
Right.
And what he used to do, and I think this is a really smart thing for independent artists, young artists to do, particularly if you have a partner who you work with, or a manager, or someone in the band that can help you. He made he bent a postcard in half, a little just sort of folded piece of cardboard. And on that cardboard, it said, if you would like to hear my next project, please leave your email or your phone number. And he collected those after every show. And he collected eventually 100,000 of them.
Wow.
He never needed a record company again, because he already had 100,000 people, which in the record world is nothing, but in real life is quite something.
Yeah.
And he was able to record and say exactly what he wanted to say on his recordings, and play them exactly the way he wanted to play them. And he had the money to do so because he had 100,000 people who would put in orders for his projects before they were even finished.
Wow.
That's a very smart thing to do. And there's probably a digital way to do that. Yeah. I think we've actually used a digital way that you hold the phone up in the air or do something. It's beyond me, but the techno files out there will know exactly what it is. They may not have to go through putting up a little cardboard tent in the middle of the table, but it works for John Prine, and it will work for you if you're an independent artist and you are organized enough to do that. It's a very, very smart way to, and by the time that a record company becomes interested, when you have 2 or 3 or 400 of those people who are interested in your project, then you already know how to market yourself. You already know an awful lot about recording yourself. I mean, there are people who are going to be better. The industry has some of the most amazing, talented people I have ever seen who work in Nashville and in places where you record music on a major scale at a major record company. And that is a wonderful thing. And their promotion is truly wonderful. And it's wonderful to have all that. But they also have control. And they also can run hot and cold. 1 minute you're the hottest thing in show business, the next minute you are yesterday's news. And I really hate the fact that they'll bring in a young artist, and he's probably got to have $100,000 of his own money or his folks' money, and to even start having a career, a major career with a major record company. That major record company will put him in a bus that costs $150,000 or $200,000. He will buy equipment. He will pay a band. He will incur all kinds of debt. And then a project or two later, he's not really selling the way they want him to. They drop him like a hot potato, and he's got to go back to Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, with an enormous debt and a broken heart. To avoid that, tell your young artists, your independent artists, you don't need to do that anymore, not with the internet. What they need to do is promote themselves. And even if they've only ever had 50,000 people, if they only had 40,000 people after playing, 3 or 4 years of shows, even if they only had that many, when you think that those people will pay $20 a piece for a project or 10, think about how much money that is.
It's a numbers game for sure.
It is a numbers game, and you don't need to have anybody controlling. Now, if you want somebody, if you want the help, and there is wonderful help to be had. I've had some of the most amazing producers who have been so helpful to me, so incredibly helpful. And a powerful producer can get your music into movies and into television shows. It can be an incredible advantage. That's all. I don't put any of that down. That is a wonderful thing, and I got to experience that, and it was great.
One thing you said caught me, that and one thing I do know about being in the music business for a short time myself is the fact that when people get signed by a record label, it doesn't have to be a major label, but even a mid-range label, and they give you money for music videos, a promotion, and like you said, a bus and those things. I don't think what artists understand is that advance money that they get, that's money they either have to make back and then some to be ahead, but they have to pay that money back if they don't achieve that kind of success where they make that kind of money and up and above that. And I've met several artists that owe thousands to their record company because they didn't achieve success like they thought they were going to. And now they're in debt, like you said. I think that's important to understand for the artist out there, that it's not, I think people have, fame in their eyes or whatever their desires are. I think you need to cautiously go into that type of, mindset, because I think you have a rude awakening if you're not going to achieve the kind of success you think you're going to. And sometimes being an independent artist is, especially nowadays with the platforms that we have, is better suited for you than to, achieve that fame, unless you're really on a level like Taylor Swift or somebody on that level that you obviously are going to sell out arenas and sell out your concerts. But if you don't, it could be a tough career.
I think what's really sad is it's really heartbreaking for a lot of people, because they feel because a big record company hasn't been able to market them properly, or they're not as great as they thought they were on a huge national, international level, doesn't mean that it's not important to a lot of people who love what you do. There may be even 40 or 50,000 people is nothing to a record company.
Right.
Unless you're selling, until you sell probably 500,000, you're just not considered to be that important at all.
Yeah.
So even so, if you had 400,000 people paying $20 a piece for your next project, you don't have to worry about, I think people get caught up in how wonderful fame is. Well, fame is okay. Fame is, you get extra perks at hotels, and sometimes they put you in first class, and, you get picked up in limousines, and there's all that kind of stuff. But I think it's highly overrated because it is a very huge intrusion into your private life.
Right.
And I think a lot of people don't count on that either. I remember not being able to see my son for maybe months and months, and I finally get to have lunch with him. And people would come up and they would want an autograph, and I didn't mind that. But they don't just want an autograph. A lot of times they will tell you their entire life story. And if you haven't seen your kid, it's very hard, and you don't want to be cruel to people. People don't understand. They don't understand that you have very little personal time with the people you love when you're on the road. I was on the road constantly. The first 3 years, I was on the road over 300 days a year, not doing that many dates, but I was out all the time, away from home.
Right. And traveling, which is not easy.
Well, after, I finally, after knowing that I had 1 million miles on only one of the 4 airplanes that I used, the air services that I flew.
Yeah.
I had 1 million miles on one of them by the time I was about 46 years old.
Wow.
And believe me, I wrote a song called "Too Many Miles on Me, Baby," and somebody else on my mind. But it was, I really, travel is, everybody loves to travel, and that's great. And I'm glad. I actually like traveling in cars at the very best.
Yeah.
We do things like stop and see the world's biggest ball of twine.
Hey, wait. Okay. Was that the one in Minnesota?
Yeah.
That my mom lives in that town, Darwin, Minnesota.
Well, tell your mom that we were thrilled with the world's biggest ball of twine. And I actually climbed up. A friend of mine reminded me, I've forgotten all about it. Somewhere in the Midwest, there's a huge statue of the Green Giant.
Yeah, that's in Minnesota. Yeah, Blue Earth, Minnesota.
My friend reminded me, he said, "I'll never forget. You ran out of the car, ran through the field, and you ran right up and sat
the Green Giant
on his foot." And I didn't remember it at all. But that's the thing about traveling by car. We get to see, the Devil's Tower. We get to see Hell's Half Acre, which is very interesting. We get to see the Badlands. We get to
South
that
Dakota,
kind of traveling. And in a car, you can have everything you need. I have all this weird vitamins, protein drinks and stuff I need to prop myself up with these days. So that's it. You can't take all that on an airplane very comfortable.
That's right.
And so, I really do enjoy car travel still, but I do not enjoy flying at all.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that.
Oh, please get me out of here.
So let me ask you about Devil by a Different Name, because I love the song, and I love the premise of the song. I think it's, I think sometimes it makes you look at yourself and how people, I think sometimes we all have to take a step back and take a look at our own selves and how we treat other people. And especially now, I mean, like you were saying, I think before we started recording about the temperature in the temperature in the world, especially United States, it's very high right now. But I talk about that song a little bit because it's I think it's a very powerful song and a very powerful message. And I think people just need to hear that message in that song. So talk about the writing of that, because I thought it was powerful.
Devil by a Different Name came from just looking at how divisive we are in this country right now. I don't remember this ever being this way before. We've seemed to have forgotten how to build bridges across this enormous chasm that's happened to us politically. And the whole Black Sheep Project is asking us to look at what we're doing. Look at this. Call me left wing, call me right. We are split right down the middle in this fight, but divided we fall. That rule don't change. It's just the devil by a different name. And then I say, call me imam, call me priest. We are brothers separated by belief, but a loveless faith is a ball and chain. It's just the devil by a different name, boys, the devil by a different name. And the whole song is about that. And the whole Black Sheep record is not just me speaking out into the world and into the divisiveness that's in the world, but speaking into my own self, into my own spirit, and saying, you need to look at this. If you're having these feelings, and that, which is why the CD was delayed, or the project was delayed, because I wrote a song called Everybody Loves to Hate. And I'm not excluding myself from that, but it just seems like we've been on this planet for thousands of years and we have never learned to get along. Yeah. And the bridge of that song goes, up at Galactic Central, they're shaking their little green heads. After all that they've seen, if they don't intervene, these human things will wind up dead because everybody loves to fight. You know, the other bridge in the song says, you know, down at TikTok, Twitter, and the face bag, conspiracy and hate speech sell. We squander our time bragging online while the whole world goes to hell. We have forgotten how to speak with each other. We have forgotten how to communicate with each other. We have forgotten, we listen, but we don't hear. Yeah. We need to listen to people whose ideas are very different from us, and we need to hear what they're saying. We may never agree. We may never, ever agree. And there are things that we will never agree about. However, we can learn how to agree to disagree and live and let live. And that is one of this song is, the whole project is a message to us saying, you know, we need to wake up. This isn't good. What we have now isn't good. It isn't helpful. It's not healthy. You know, if you're in a relationship and you stop talking to one another, that relationship is doomed. Yeah. You have to communicate. We have to communicate. We have to learn how to compromise. Nobody in this world is ever going to get everything they want. Politically, it's just not going to happen because people's beliefs are too different. Yeah. What we need to learn to do is cross those lines, walk across that borderline, walk across that, you know, open that gate, tear down that wall, and come together. My two favorite days of my life were when the Berlin Wall came down. Yeah. And when gay people were given the privilege of marrying one another. Absolutely. Those two things made me very happy because I honestly believe, and in the Black Sheep record, I talk about this. There's a song called Love Yourself. And we had a great teacher, and a lot of us in this country call ourselves Christians. And that man told us, love God with all your heart, mind, and spirit. Love yourself. And love your neighbor as yourself. And he said that is the whole of the law. And all the other laws of life are based upon it. And by the way, that is what I came to teach. If we're not walking that talk and we're calling ourselves Christians, we need to take another look. The Black Sheep Project is me taking a look at deep inside myself and me asking us all to take a look. Take a look in there. Make sure that if you're not doing that, and believe me, I don't do it every day. It's not easy to do. But I do believe that that is the greatest truth I have ever heard. That's the greatest teaching I've ever heard. I mean, I've read all sorts of beliefs, and there are all sorts of wonderful things that people have said, but that's pretty specific. Yeah, I think... believe in something higher than yourself and love it. Yeah. We're taught to love. We're taught not to judge. How many of us can even come close to that ideal? Not very many of us. But I think it's a fear. I think it's a fear of what you don't know. And I often, I would commute from as we were talking before we recorded, I live in South Jersey, but I used to commute to Manhattan every day for work. And I always invited people that would, would talk to me about stuff like that, or would be afraid of something that they don't know. I said, look, if you took my train ride every day to Manhattan, with 8 different nationalities on that train and everybody of different sexual orientation, and, you would find that, everybody gets along. Everybody was talking, drinking their coffee and
there was nobody afraid of anybody. And I said, take that commute for a week, and I think you would change your mind. That I think it's just a fear of what you don't know. And I think if people lose that fear, I think this would be a different world, I believe.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think your analogy to riding on the train, we're all on this planet. And I believe there is one great spirit that is in all that is. Every single person is animated. Every animal, every plant is animated. What is it animated by? What animates that? Well, it's not just chaos, because if you plant a pine cone, you're going to get a pine tree. If you plant an acorn, you're going to get an oak tree.
Yep.
An intelligent microcosm, to me, implies an intelligent macrocosm. And there's so many factors that we don't take in with our hatred. And one of them that I think is very interesting right now, the petrochemicals in the air are causing a lot of free estrogens. Little girls are coming into their womanhood at 9, 10, 11 years old. What is that doing to little boys? No wonder there's some confusion. No wonder. Do we ever think of that? Do we ever look at that? No, we just hate. It's wrong. It's really wrong.
Yeah.
It's very important for us to try to not, if we're going to judge someone, to judge with righteous judgment, not to judge with hate. Yeah. That's why I waited for this record. I had to put Everybody Loves to Hate on this record. It's actually a tongue-in-cheek kind of a song. It's not, but the concept of it, Dave, is serious. We seem to want to do that more than we want to love. And that's going to cause us to be an extinct species if we don't get it together. And this is the time. Yeah. This is the time to do that. And that's why I'm speaking so clearly and openly, both on this record and in these interviews that I do.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And, and I think more people need to do that. And I think part of the problem is, as much as we love social media and as much as it's a good thing for artists and people like myself to get my work out there, it's also a bad thing too. When I grew up, and I was born in the 60s and grew up in the 70s and 80s. And, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have anything other than face-to-face talking or on a rotary phone, that if I talked to a girlfriend, I had to take my phone and go outside and go into the detached garage and shut the door to have any privacy. That's how we communicated back then, but it was personal. And now people get behind their keyboards and they can, be mean to one another, and they can do it behind, the safety of their keyboards. And then it creates all this hate, and, there's no more, face-to-face, talking and conversing. And when they do see each other, they're already so enraged from what they were saying on social media that it ends up in fighting and using guns. And it's just, I think social media can be, it's obviously bad and good, but I think it's getting progressively worse when people are talking about hateful things on social media. And I think it spills over when they do see each other face to face. And I think the respect that we used to have before all the social media is gone. And, I remember, I work with a lot of younger people, and they don't even, they'll never know what a rotary phone is or what, talking to people. Sometimes they'll be next to each other and they texting each other instead of talking face to face. So I think that social media has its place, but I also think that we need to put it down sometimes and actually converse with people and have that respect, even if you don't get along, or if you don't, I shouldn't say that, not get along, but they don't see eye to eye on certain things. I think it's important to have respectful conversations as opposed to screaming over social media.
I think just about everybody who uses social media would probably say the same thing. I think we know better. I think we have higher angels. And I think that we need to be reminded of them. And the black sheep, and I need to be reminded every single day, 24/7. I myself need to be. That's why when I put this project out, it's not just putting it out into the world, it's putting it into my spirit as well. Walk this talk. You're going to talk about loving and And I'm just like all the rest of us. There are things that I just hate. I hate the behaviors of some people. I hate the gun culture. I don't mind guns. My father was a trainer for the NRA and a sharpshooter. I don't hate guns, but what do you do with crazy people with guns? What do you do with a 6-year-old who has a gun?
Yeah.
These things are crazy. Pennsylvania is a big gun place, and I don't have a problem with guns, but I have a problem with assault weapons. We don't need to have those to kill a deer. And unless you are planning on having a war, which a lot of people are now, they want to have a war because after all, that's what makes us feel good. It's, I think my line in the song is that never fails to delight. But wars are
a sad fact. Yeah.
Wars are horrible. And fighting with guns is horrible. And Uvalde was a heartbreaking thing. And then they pass all these gun laws that anybody can carry a gun at all times, constantly, everywhere. And then wonder why we're having all these shootings. Somebody needs to be the grown-up in the room. And like I said, I do not have a problem with hunting. I don't have a problem with guns. My father was a guide on a hunting preserve, and he was an NRA instructor. I don't have a problem with guns, but I have a problem with guns that we don't need. Right. We are not, unless we really are planning on a civil war again, which a lot of people are. A lot of people are excited about that. They want to have a civil war. Well, why don't we learn to talk to each other instead?
Yeah.
Why don't we learn how to negotiate? Why don't we learn how to be diplomatic? It's time. World is not a child anymore. And what we are doing is pushing us to the edge of extinction. And if we don't think that's true, look around. Almost every species of edible fish has been fished nearly to extinction.
Yep.
Every coral reef in the ocean, practically, there are only a few that are still alive. That's where fish breed. Yep. They're cutting down the rainforest still from the 70s at a football field a second. All those wonderful trees and cures for diseases we don't even know what's down there.
Right.
I mean, this is and I don't mean to be a downer or depressing, but I do think it's time for a wake-up call, and we really need to wake up now and stop fighting with each other. We need to work together. We can do such amazing things when human beings work together.
I think the art of conversation is dying, unfortunately. So, yeah, you're right. Though, if we have, we talk to each other and have respectful conversations, I think things would be a lot different. And I wanted to get into this real quick. I know before we go, your foundation where you work with, supporting, wild horses, Let Them Run Foundation. I think that's a great foundation. And I just wanted quickly for you to talk to our listeners about that, because that's something and how they can get involved with something like that.
Well, we have a website and it's called Let Them Run. It's LETEMRUN.org. And what we do basically is we do shows and projects to raise money. And we like to give money to the boots on the ground, the little mom and pop organizations that are really doing the bulk of the work. The big organizations like Humane Association and ASPCA and some of the larger ones have to spend a lot of their money legislating, trying to change laws. That's a very expensive proposition, a hard thing to do. The little mom and pop groups are the ones who get more horses rehomed and rehabilitated and, just down the road and where they can have a forever home. And we have horses are like rabbits. They reproduce so incredibly quickly. So even though in the best of all possible worlds, I wouldn't believe in birth control for myself, but you know what? It helped me. And I wouldn't believe in it for horses either. But this is not the best of all possible worlds. It's just the only world we have. And so I guess it is the best possible one that we know of. But we at Let 'Em Run, we feel that if we don't use compassionate birth control that's reversible after a few years, We won't have any of these horses left. We built our civilization on the bones of these animals. They deserve to be honored for that. They deserve to be preserved for that. And your kids and your grandkids should be able to go out west and see them, or wherever they are. Mystic Chincoteague Island, off the coast of Virginia. There are wild ponies and wild horses everywhere, and they need to be preserved. And we are not really doing a very good job of preserving them. There is a prevailing myth that horses are not native to this country. What isn't native to this country are white people and cows.
Right. Yeah.
So that's not an
well
excuse
said.
for me. That's not a reason to eliminate white people and cows, and it's not a reason to eliminate wild horses.
Very
I had a
true.
pic of the modern day wild horse in my Wild Horse Museum in Virginia City, which we had for 8 years. There's a picture of the bones of a modern day horse in the Pleistocene mud, and you can see it at the Nevada Museum to this day. So the horses have been here. They probably died out in the great mammal die out, or they were eaten by native peoples to sustain them. But it's amazing because the Lakota people in their oral traditions say, we have always had the horse. We have always had the horse. And their word for horse, they called their horses a completely different name than the Spanish Mustang and the Spanish horses. Two different names. So whatever it was that the cavalry shot, hundreds and hundreds of them to stop the Indian Wars, whatever those horses were, the Lakota say they have always had them. And we have to have some respect for these native traditions, these oral traditions. We've learned so much from them. But
Yeah.
we're committed to helping the mom and pop groups that don't have a lot of time to raise a lot of money. So that's what we do at Let 'Em Run. And if anybody's interested, we love to go places and do shows and raise money for the horses. We're doing one very soon. July the 27th, we're at the Red Dog Saloon up in Virginia City, the old town of Virginia City, Nevada, which is very near where I live. And we're going to be doing a big event for the wild horses on that day.
They can donate on the website too.
Yeah. And my manager is reminding me, who is also the treasurer of Let 'Em Run, that you can donate on the website as well.
What's the website again, real quick? It's letemrun.org.
Letemrun.org.
Okay.
Let 'Em Run. And you can get there from Lacy J. Dalton.
Okay. And LacyJDalton.org as well. So, before we go, Lacy, I always ask this question of all my guests, and, I'm going to ask you as well, when it's all said and done, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? I know you left a great musical legacy, but what kind of legacy do you want to leave as Lacy J. Dalton when it's all said and done to your fans?
I really hope, and I said this about the Black Sheep CD or project or whatever you call it now, that I hope that if there's any wisdom in it or any healing in it, that it will reach the people who need that healing and who can hear those messages and grow from them and be comforted by them. I put a lot of comfort and healing into this project. I came here not to be a musician. I came here and run a lot of healing energy. It's why I'm on this planet at this time. It's what I do. It's who I am. And that's how I hope I will be remembered.
The song is out now, What Don't Kill Ya, and I listened to it. It's an amazing song, like anything else that you come out with, Lacy. It's amazing. So, just an honor to have you on, and just all the years that you've been performing, all the top 10 hits. Like I said, growing up, your music was being played in my household, among many other millions of households. And thank you for what you've, given us musically in your life, and just a great conversation tonight. And I can't thank you enough for being on our show, and you're welcome back anytime.
Oh, well, I'm so pleased to have been with you. It's a joy to know you, and I just want to wish all of your wonderful listeners to keep listening to your show, because you're going to have all sorts of wonderful independent artists on there, and all of us want to be heard, need to be heard, and you're providing a service that not a lot of people provide for us. We appreciate it so very much.
Well, thank you so much for that. Absolutely. And hope you have a great rest of your week, and can't wait to see what's coming out next. So thank you again.
Well, you're very, very welcome. And I hope you like what's coming up next.